the stranger stumbled into Pinos Altos, New Mexico territory, on a Wednesday afternoon in August of 1878, covered in dust and blood that wasn't entirely her own. And Lucas Denver knew the moment he saw her that she was running from something worse than the scorching desert sun. He'd been leaning against the post outside the general store, rolling a cigarette and minding his business when she appeared at the edge of town like a mirage that refused to fade. Her dress, once probably a respectable shade of blue, hung torn at the hem, and her dark hair had escaped whatever pins had once held it, cascading wild around her shoulders. She moved with the determination of someone who had nothing left to lose, each step deliberate despite the obvious exhaustion that weighed on her frame. Lucas straightened, the cigarette forgotten between his fingers. The woman couldn't have been more than 23 or 24, and even through the grime and the fear etched into her features, he could see she was beautiful in that raw, unpolished way that made his chest tighten unexpectedly. Her eyes, green as spring grass after rain, swept the street with the wariness of a hunted animal. She made it another 10 paces before her knees buckled. Lucas was moving before conscious thought caught up with instinct, crossing the dusty street in long strides. He caught her before she hit the ground, his arms steadying her weight against him. "Easy now," he murmured, keeping his voice low and calm. "I've got you." She flinched at his touch but didn't pull away, which told him she was either too tired to fight or desperate enough to accept help from a stranger. Her fingers clutched at his shirt and he could feel her trembling. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracked and dry. "They're coming. They'll be here soon." Lucas glanced toward the desert road she'd emerged from, seeing nothing but heat shimmer and sage, but that didn't mean much. In this territory, danger could appear as quickly as a summer storm. "Who's coming?" "The Harlow brothers." Her eyes met his, and he saw genuine terror there. "They killed my husband 3 days ago. They want me dead too because I saw their faces." Lucas knew the Harlow brothers by reputation. Every lawman and honest rancher in 3 territories knew them. They were murderers and thieves who'd avoided justice through cunning and ruthlessness, leaving a trail of blood from Texas to California. If they were after this woman, she had every reason to be terrified. "What's your name?" he asked. "Hannah Freeman." She swallowed hard. "We were traveling to Silver City. My husband Thomas had business there. They ambushed our wagon, took everything, and—" Her voice broke. Lucas made a decision that would change everything. "Come with me." He guided her toward the small church at the end of the street, its white paint peeling in the relentless sun. Father Miguel was sweeping the steps, his weathered face creasing with concern as they approached. "Lucas, what's happened?" "Father, I need you to marry us. Right now." Hannah's head snapped up, her eyes widening. "What?" Father Miguel's broom stilled. "My son, I don't understand." Lucas kept his gaze steady on the priest. "The Harlow brothers are hunting this woman. If she's my wife, she's under my protection. My name carries weight in this territory. They'll think twice before crossing me." "You can't," Hannah said, trying to pull away from him. "You don't even know me. Why would you do this for me?" He looked down at her then, this stranger with frightened eyes and dirt on her cheek, and spoke the simple truth. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because no woman deserves to die running scared in the desert. But marriage, that's your whole life, your name, your reputation. I'm offering them freely." He turned back to Father Miguel. "Will you do it?" The priest studied them both for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Come inside." The church interior was cool and dim, a welcome relief from the brutal heat outside. Hannah stood rigid beside Lucas as Father Miguel retrieved his prayer book, her mind clearly racing. "This is insane," she whispered. "I'm a widow of 3 days. You're a complete stranger." Would you rather take your chances with the Harlows? She closed her eyes briefly. No. Then we do this and we deal with everything else after. Lucas surprised himself with how calm he sounded when his heart was pounding against his ribs like a wild horse. Father Miguel cleared his throat. We should at least have witnesses. No time, Lucas said. They could ride in any minute. Just do it, Father. God will understand the circumstances. The ceremony was brief, stripped of all the usual flourishes and celebrations. Lucas spoke his vows in a steady voice, and Hannah's words came out barely above a whisper. He didn't have a ring to offer, so he took the silver band he wore on his right hand, the one his father had given him before dying, and slipped it onto her finger. It was too large, spinning loose around her slender digit. I now pronounce you man and wife, Father Miguel said, making the sign of the cross. May God protect you both in whatever comes next. Lucas had barely processed the weight of what they'd done when the sound of horses reached them from outside, multiple riders moving fast. Hannah's face went pale and her hand found his, gripping tight. Stay behind me, Lucas told her, moving toward the door. He wore his Colt on his hip, the leather worn smooth from years of use, and his hand rested on the grip with practiced ease. 6 men pulled up in front of the church in a cloud of dust. Lucas recognized Colt Harlow immediately, the oldest brother with his hawk nose and cold eyes. The others fanned out, hands near their weapons, faces hard with bad intent. That's far enough, Lucas called out, stepping onto the church steps but positioning himself to keep Hannah blocked from view. We're looking for a woman, Colt said, his voice like gravel. Dark hair, blue dress, saw her tracks leading into town. Lots of women in Pinos Altos, Lucas replied evenly. Don't play games, Denver, we know she came this way. The woman who came through here is under my protection now. Lucas let his coat fall back, giving them a clear view of his gun. She's my wife. Colt's eyes narrowed. Your wife. That's convenient timing. Father Miguel married us not 10 minutes ago. You can ask him yourself. Lucas kept his voice level, but his muscles were coiled tight, ready. Now I suggest you ride out. You've got no business here. One of the younger brothers, probably Jesse, spat into the dust. She saw us. She can identify us. She's my wife now, Lucas repeated, investing the words with steel. Which means she's family to every man who rides for the Denver brand. You think you want that fight? It wasn't an idle threat. The Denver ranch was one of the largest in the territory, and Lucas employed 24 men, all loyal, all capable. The Harlows were good with a gun, but they weren't stupid enough to start a war they couldn't win. Colt sat his horse in silence for a long moment, calculating. Finally, he smiled, though it held no warmth. You're making a mistake, Denver. That's my business. Watch your back. Territory's a dangerous place. I always do. The Harlows turned their horses and rode out, but Lucas knew this wasn't over. Men like that didn't forgive or forget. He stood on the church steps until they disappeared down the main road, then released a breath he hadn't known he was holding. Hannah appeared beside him, her face still pale but her jaw set with determination. They'll come back, probably. I've put you in danger. This was a mistake. We should. I don't know, get an annulment or something. Lucas looked at her properly for the first time since they'd spoken their vows. In the shadowed doorway of the church, with fear and gratitude and confusion all warring in her expression, she was the most compelling thing he'd seen in years. We made a commitment in front of God and a priest, he said quietly. I don't take that lightly, even under these circumstances. You're my wife now, Hannah Denver, for better or worse. She blinked rapidly, and he realized she was fighting tears. Why would you do this for me? You don't know anything about me. I could be a terrible person. I could be a liar or a thief or worse. Are you any of those things? No, but you don't know that. He smiled slightly. I'm a good judge of character. Comes from working with horses and men most of my life. You learn to read what's real and what's not. He paused. You loved your husband. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Yes, Thomas was a good man. We'd only been married 8 months. The grief in her voice was genuine, and Lucas felt something twist in his chest. He'd just married a woman who was mourning another man. The situation was more complicated than he'd initially considered, but he'd made his choice. I'm sorry for your loss, he said, and I'm sorry you didn't get to mourn him properly. But right now, we need to focus on keeping you alive. Hannah wrapped her arms around herself. What happens now? Now I take you home. My ranch is about 5 miles west of town. You'll be safe there. And then what? We're married, but we're strangers. How does this work? Lucas didn't have a good answer for that. He'd acted on instinct, on the bone-deep certainty that letting her face the Harlows alone would be wrong. But he hadn't thought much beyond the immediate need to protect her. We figure it out as we go, he said finally. I've got a spare room. You can have your space, your privacy. We don't have to. This doesn't have to be a real marriage unless you want it to be. Unless I want it to be. She let out a short, slightly hysterical laugh. I buried my husband 3 days ago. I don't know what I want except to survive. Then that's what we focus on, surviving. Father Miguel emerged from the church with a worn leather journal. I've recorded the marriage in the parish records. Whatever your reasons in the eyes of God and the law, you are husband and wife. Lucas nodded. Thank you, Father. Take care of her, my son. And perhaps, in time, what began from necessity might become something more. They walked to where Lucas had left his horse, a sturdy bay gelding named Copper, tied outside the general store. Hannah moved stiffly, exhaustion and shock catching up with her now that the immediate danger had passed. Can you ride? Lucas asked. Yes, but I don't have a horse. The Harlows took everything. You'll ride with me. He swung into the saddle and offered his hand. She hesitated only a moment before taking it, allowing him to pull her up behind him. She settled awkwardly at first, then wrapped her arms around his waist as he turned Copper toward home. They rode in silence, the afternoon sun beating down mercilessly. Hannah's grip on him tightened whenever they passed through a narrow wash or rounded a blind corner, her fear of pursuit still sharp. Lucas kept alert, one hand always near his gun, but they saw no one on the road. The Denver ranch appeared as they crested a low rise, sprawling across a valley where a year-round creek provided precious water. The main house was solid adobe with a deep porch, built to withstand both the summer heat and the occasional winter storm. Outbuildings dotted the property: barn, bunkhouse, corrals, a smithy. Cattle grazed in the distance, and Lucas could see several of his men working near the barn. "This is your home?" Hannah asked, the first words she'd spoken since leaving town. "For the last 6 years. My father built it, left it to me when he passed. It's beautiful, it's functional. Beauty's a bonus." He guided Copper to the main house and dismounted, then helped Hannah down. She swayed on her feet, and he steadied her with a hand on her elbow. "When did you last eat?" "I don't remember." "Yesterday morning, maybe. Come on." The house interior was neat but sparse, decorated with the minimal attention of a man who lived alone. Lucas led her to the kitchen and pulled out a chair at the worn wooden table. "Sit. I'll get you something." He worked quickly, slicing bread and cheese, pouring water from a clay pitcher. Hannah ate mechanically at first, then with increasing hunger, not stopping until she'd cleaned the plate. Color began returning to her cheeks. "Thank you," she said softly. "There's more if you want it." "No, that's enough for now." She looked around the kitchen, taking in the details. "You live here alone?" "Yes, I've got men in the bunkhouse, but the main house is just me." "No family. My father died 4 years ago. My mother passed when I was 12. No siblings. He poured himself water and leaned against the counter. What about you? Any family we should contact, let them know you're safe. Hannah's expression closed off. My parents died when I was 17. No siblings either. Thomas had a brother in California, but we weren't close to him. I'm sorry. It seems we're both alone in the world. She looked down at the two large silver ring on her finger. Or we were, anyway. The awkwardness settled between them again, heavy and strange. They were married, but they were strangers. They'd spoken vows, but under duress. They wore rings, but felt no love. I'll show you the spare room, Lucas said, breaking the silence. You can rest, clean up. There's a well out back with fresh water. I don't have women's clothes, but I can find you something clean to wear until we can get to town. You've already done so much. It's the least I can do, considering I just made you my wife. He led her down a short hallway to a small bedroom. It was simple but clean, with a narrow bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out toward the mountains. Hannah stood in the doorway as if afraid to enter. It's yours, Lucas said. For as long as you need it, Lucas. She turned to face him, those green eyes searching his face. Why did you really do this? And don't say it's just because it was the right thing. Nobody risks their life and changes their entire future for a stranger without a real reason. He considered his answer carefully. My father used to say that a man's worth isn't measured by how much he owns or how fast he can draw. It's measured by what he does when nobody's watching, when there's nothing to gain. He met her gaze steadily. You needed help, and I could give it. Maybe that's not enough of a reason for some people, but it's enough for me. Hannah studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Your father raised you well, he tried. Lucas stepped back. Get some rest. We'll figure out the rest later. He left her there and returned to the main room, sinking into his father's old chair by the empty fireplace. The weight of what he'd done was starting to settle on him now. He'd gotten married. Actually married. To a woman he didn't know, in a ceremony that lasted less than 5 minutes, to protect her from killers who now had a score to settle with him too. His ranch foreman, Pete Martinez, knocked on the open door an hour later. Pete was 50 if he was a day, with silver threading through his dark hair and the weathered face of a man who'd spent his life outdoors. Saw you ride in with a woman, Pete said without preamble. Everything all right? Come in. We need to talk. Lucas explained the situation while Pete listened, his expression growing more concerned with each detail. When Lucas finished, Pete let out a low whistle. The Harlow brothers. You don't do anything by halves, do you? They would have killed her. No argument from me on that. But now they might come for both of you. Pete leaned forward. You know they won't let this go. I know. I want the men armed and alert, extra watches at night. Anyone sees riders they don't recognize, they sound the alarm. You think they'll attack the ranch? I think they're unpredictable. Better to be ready. Pete nodded, then asked carefully, so you really married her, legal and everything? Father Miguel performed the ceremony. It's recorded in the church records. That's quite a commitment to make for someone you just met. Lucas didn't have a good response to that, so he just shrugged. It's done. What's her name? Hannah. Hannah Denver now, and she's staying here. Where else would she go? She's my wife. The words still felt strange on his tongue, but he was committed to them now. Pete stood. Well then, I guess I should welcome her to the ranch properly. The men will want to meet her too. Give her some time. She's been through hell these past few days. Understood. I'll get the boys organized, set up the watch rotation. After Pete left, Lucas sat alone with his thoughts as the afternoon faded toward evening. He should probably start thinking about dinner, about what happened next, about how two strangers were supposed to navigate being married. But exhaustion and the heat conspired to make his thoughts sluggish. He must have dozed because he woke to find the light slanting long and golden through the windows. Hannah stood in the doorway, changed into a clean shirt and pants she must have found in the spare room. They were too large for her, the sleeves rolled up, the waist cinched with a rope belt, but she looked more comfortable than before. "I used the well," she said. "I hope that's all right. Of course, this is your home now." She came further into the room, moving with obvious uncertainty about her place here. "I've been thinking. We should talk about how this is going to work. We can't just pretend we didn't get married, but we also can't pretend it's a normal marriage. What do you suggest?" Hannah sat on the edge of the sofa, perched like she might need to flee at any moment. "We should be honest with each other. No pretending, no false expectations. We're married for practical reasons. You've saved my life and I'm grateful. But I don't expect anything from you beyond protection and shelter." "And what do you think I expect from you?" She met his eyes directly. "I don't know. That's why we need to talk about it." Lucas respected her forthrightness. "I don't expect anything except honesty. You've been through a trauma. You lost your husband. You need time to heal, to figure out who you are without him. I understand that. Do you?" Her voice was soft but challenging. "Because most men wouldn't." "I'm not most men. No," she said slowly. "I'm beginning to see that." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, then Lucas stood. "I should make dinner. Are you hungry? I could eat. Can I help?" "You don't have to. I want to. If I'm going to be here, I should do something useful." They moved into the kitchen together, and Lucas was struck by how strange it felt to have someone else in his space. He'd lived alone for 4 years since his father's death, grown accustomed to solitude. Now there was a woman in his kitchen, a woman who was legally his wife, and everything felt slightly off-kilter. Hannah proved competent at the stove, taking over the preparation of beans and bacon while Lucas sliced more bread. They worked in companionable quiet, their movements gradually finding a rhythm. "Tell me about Thomas," Lucas said as they sat down to eat, Hannah's hand stilled on her fork. "Why?" "Because he was important to you. Because pretending he didn't exist isn't the same as respecting your grief." She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "He was kind. He made me laugh. We met in Santa Fe when I was working in a dress shop. He came in to buy something for his mother, got flustered trying to explain what he wanted, and I thought it was endearing." A sad smile touched her lips. "He proposed 3 months later. We got married in a little church, and I wore a yellow dress because I'd worn black for so long after my parents died. I wanted color for our wedding. He sounds like a good man. He was. He deserved better than dying in the dirt for a wagon full of supplies and $40. The bitterness in her voice was raw, and Lucas understood it. Senseless death often hurt worse than the kind that came with reason or meaning. "The Harlows will answer for what they did," he said quietly. "How? They've been killing and stealing for years, and no one stopped them yet. Someone will eventually. Men like that always push too far. Cold comfort when Thomas is in a shallow grave somewhere between here and Silver City." She pushed her plate away, her appetite clearly gone. "I couldn't even bury him properly. I was too busy running, trying to stay alive." Lucas reached across the table, covering her hand with his. The gesture surprised them both, but he didn't pull away. "When this is over, when it's safe, we'll go back. We'll find him and give him a proper burial. I promise you that." Hannah's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "You barely know me. Why do you keep making promises?" "Because that's what husbands do." Even as he said it, he realized he meant it. Whatever the circumstances of their marriage, he took his vows seriously. She was under his protection now, and that meant something. The next 2 weeks fell into an unexpected pattern. Hannah took over much of the household work, insisting she needed to feel useful. Lucas spent his days working the ranch, checking fence lines, moving cattle, doing the 100 small tasks that kept an operation this size running. They ate meals together, spoke about inconsequential things, learned each other's habits and preferences. Slowly, carefully, they became something like friends. Hannah proved intelligent and funny when the fear and grief weren't weighing on her. She had strong opinions about everything from politics to the best way to make biscuits, and she wasn't shy about expressing them. Lucas found himself looking forward to their conversations, to the sound of her voice in a house that had been too quiet for too long. She asked about the ranch, genuinely interested in how things worked. He taught her to ride properly, gave her one of his gentler horses, a dappled mare named Sage. Hannah took to it naturally, and soon she was riding out with him in the mornings, checking the herds, learning the land. "You're good at this," Lucas observed one morning as they watched cattle graze in a green valley. "I like it out here. It's peaceful." Hannah shaded her eyes, looking toward the mountains. "Thomas and I were going to buy land, start a ranch of our own. He had dreams of building something that would last. You could still do that." She turned to look at him. "Could I?" "I'm legally your wife now, but I don't even know what that means for my future. Can I own property, make my own decisions?" "You can do whatever you want, Hannah. I'm not your jailer. But you're my husband, in name. That doesn't mean I own you or control you." She studied him with those sharp green eyes. "You really mean that, don't you?" "I do." "You're a strange man, Lucas Denver," he smiled. "I've been told that before." They rode back to the ranch in comfortable silence, but Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting between them. What had started as a marriage of convenience was becoming something more complex, something he didn't quite have words for yet. That night, Pete knocked on the door with news. Harlows were spotted near Silver City, robbed a stage, killed the driver. Lucas felt Hannah tense beside him. "How reliable is the information?" "Very. Sheriff in Silver City sent word to all the surrounding territories. They're getting bolder." "Or more desperate," Lucas said. "Either way, they're still out there." After Pete left, Hannah stood at the window, staring out into the darkness. "They're never going to stop, are they? This is my life now, always looking over my shoulder, always afraid." Lucas came to stand beside her. "We'll figure it out." "How? You can't protect me forever. You have a ranch to run, a life to live. You can't spend every moment watching for them. Then we make sure they can't come after you." "How? I don't know yet, but I promise you, Hannah, we'll find a way." She turned to face him, and in the lamplight, she looked achingly vulnerable. "You keep making promises you might not be able to keep." "I keep the promises I make." They stood close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes, smell the soap she'd used to wash her hair. Something passed between them, a moment of awareness that made his heart beat faster. Then Hannah stepped back, breaking the spell. "I should go to bed. Early morning tomorrow." "Hannah," she paused at the doorway. "Yes. You're not alone in this. Remember that." She nodded but didn't speak, just disappeared down the hallway to her room. Lucas stood alone in the quiet house, wondering when exactly he'd started caring about her as more than just someone who needed protection. The answer came to him as he lay in bed that night, unable to sleep. It had been gradual, a slow accumulation of moments. The way she laughed at his bad jokes, how she wasn't afraid to challenge him when she disagreed, the sight of her in the morning with her hair loose, drinking coffee on the porch while the sun rose. The fierce intelligence in her eyes when they talked about books they'd read or places they wanted to see. He was falling for his own wife, this woman he'd married to save her life, and he had no idea what to do about it. The situation came to a head 3 weeks after their wedding when Hannah came riding in hard from the north pasture, Sage lathered with sweat. Lucas was working with one of the young horses in the corral and immediately dropped what he was doing. "What's wrong?" 3 riders watching the ranch from that bluff to the north. I saw the sun reflect off something, probably a spyglass. Lucas didn't waste time. He called for Pete and 4 other men, all armed, and they rode out together. By the time they reached the bluff, the riders were gone, but their tracks were clear in the dirt. "Harlow's," Pete said, examining the hoofprints. "You're sure? One of these horses has a distinctive shoe pattern. I've seen it before when I was tracking them for Sheriff Coleman last year." Lucas felt cold settle into his chest. "They're scouting, planning something. We should move Hannah into town," Pete suggested. "Maybe to Santa Fe where there's a proper law presence. They'd follow her, and she'd be exposed on the road, vulnerable during the journey. So what do we do?" Lucas looked back toward the ranch, his home, where Hannah waited. "We end this. We find them before they find us." But hunting the Harlows proved harder than expected. They were ghosts in the desert, appearing and disappearing without pattern. Twice more over the next week, Lucas's men spotted signs of surveillance, but the brothers were never close enough to confront. The tension wore on everyone. Hannah grew quieter, the fear creeping back into her eyes. Lucas found himself wanting to comfort her but not knowing how. They were married, but not really. They cared for each other but hadn't spoken of it. They lived together, ate together, spent their days in each other's company, but slept in separate rooms and maintained careful distance. It was Pete who finally said what Lucas had been thinking. They were checking the cattle in the south pasture when the older man asked, "Are you going to tell her?" "Tell her what?" "That you're in love with her." Lucas nearly fell off his horse. "I'm not. We're not. It's complicated." "Doesn't look complicated from where I'm standing." "You watch her like a man watches the sunrise. She looks for you first thing every morning. You move around each other like you've been married for years, not weeks. She loved her husband. She's still grieving him. Grief doesn't preclude new feelings. The heart's more complicated than that." "And what if I tell her and I'm wrong? What if she doesn't feel the same? We still have to live together. I can't make this more awkward than it already is." Pete shook his head. "You're overthinking it, boss. Sometimes you just have to take the leap and trust that the ground will be there to catch you." But before Lucas could decide what to do about his feelings, the Harlows forced his hand. It happened on a Tuesday evening. Lucas was in the barn checking on a mare who was due to foal any day when he heard Copper whinny in alarm. Years of living in dangerous territory had honed his instincts, and he grabbed his rifle before moving to the barn door. The ranch yard was empty, but something felt wrong. Too quiet. The usual sounds of evening, the men talking in the bunkhouse, the dogs barking, were absent. Then he saw the smoke. The bunkhouse was on fire, flames already licking through the roof. Lucas ran toward it, shouting for his men, and they came pouring out, coughing and disoriented. Someone had barred the door from the outside, and they'd only escaped through the windows. "Where's Hannah?" Lucas shouted. Pete appeared, his face blackened with smoke. "I don't know. I haven't seen her since dinner." Lucas's blood went cold. He ran for the main house, rifle in hand, expecting the worst. The front door stood open, swinging in the evening breeze. Inside, the house was dark and empty. "Hannah," no answer. He searched every room, his heart pounding harder with each empty space. In her bedroom, he found signs of a struggle. The dresser knocked askew, her boots left behind, the window open. They'd taken her. Lucas ran outside and found the tracks immediately. 3 horses, riding hard to the north. He was saddling Copper when Pete caught his arm. "You can't go alone." "It's what they want. It's a trap. I don't care. They have Hannah." "Then take me and the boys with you. We'll ride together." But Lucas was already mounting up. "Get the fire under control. Make sure no one's hurt. I'm going after her." "Lucas, be smart about this. They have my wife." The words came out raw and fierce, and Lucas realized it was the first time he'd claimed her that way with feeling behind it. Pete must have heard it too because he stepped back and nodded. Then bring her home. Both of you. Lucas rode into the gathering darkness, following the tracks by moonlight and instinct. The Harlows weren't trying to hide their trail, which confirmed Pete's suspicion that this was a trap. They wanted him to follow. They wanted to draw him out. He didn't care. 2 hours of hard riding brought him to an abandoned ranch house, a victim of Apache raids years ago. Firelight flickered through the broken windows, and he could see horses tied outside. Lucas dismounted 100 yards away and approached on foot, his rifle ready. Voices carried on the night air. He heard Colt Harlow's distinctive drawl and then, like music, Hannah's voice raised in anger. "He'll kill you all. You don't know who you're dealing with. Denver, he's just a rancher. We've killed tougher men. He's more than that, and he'll come for me. We're counting on it, sweetheart." That's the whole plan. Lucas circled the house, looking for the best approach. Through a gap in the wall, he could see Hannah tied to a chair, her face bruised but her eyes blazing with defiance. 5 men total, the 3 Harlow brothers and 2 others he didn't recognize, all armed. All watching the door. The odds weren't good, but Lucas had surprise on his side, and more importantly, he had motivation. These men had killed Hannah's husband, terrorized her, and now they'd taken her from the safety of his home. The cold rage that settled over him was clearer than thought. He made his way to the back of the house where the wall had partially collapsed, creating an opening just large enough to slip through. Inside, the remains of the old ranch house offered shadows to hide in. He could hear the men more clearly now. "How long do we wait?" one of the unknown men asked. "As long as it takes," Colt replied. "Denver will come. Men like him, they think they're honorable, can't resist the damsel in distress." "Then what?" "Then we kill him, kill her, and take whatever we want from his ranch. Nobody crosses the Harlows and lives to tell about it." Lucas used their conversation as cover to move closer. He positioned himself behind a partial wall where he had a clear view of the room. Hannah saw him first, her eyes widening fractionally, but she was smart enough not to react beyond that tiny tell. "Lucas Denver is worth 10 of any of you," she said loudly, drawing their attention. "He's honorable, brave, and decent, things you couldn't understand if you tried." "Sounds like you're sweet on your fake husband," Colt laughed. "Does he know you're just using him for protection? He's not fake. We're married, legally and truly, and she stopped, her eyes meeting Lucas's across the darkened room. "And I love him." The words hit Lucas like a physical blow. She loved him. Hannah Freeman, now Hannah Denver, loved him. Unless she was lying to convince the Harlows, but he could see the truth in her eyes, could hear it in the tremor of her voice. "Touching," Colt said. "Too bad you'll both be dead soon." Lucas made his move. He stepped out of the shadows with his rifle raised. Nobody's dying tonight except anyone who reaches for their gun. The Harlows spun toward him, hands moving toward their weapons, but Lucas was ready. "Don't. I've got a round chambered and 5 more after that. Even if you get me, I'll take at least 3 of you down, and I promise you, Colt, you'll be first." Colt's hand froze inches from his pistol. "You came alone, stupid or confident, your choice how you interpret it." Lucas didn't take his eyes off them, didn't let the rifle waver. "Here's how this is going to work. You're going to untie my wife. Then you're going to ride out of this territory and never come back. Or what? You'll shoot us in cold blood, if I have to. But I'd rather give you a chance to leave. Consider it Christian charity. There's 5 of us and 1 of you. Right now there is, but I've got 24 men who work for me and they'll be here soon." It was a bluff, but a reasonable one. "You really want to make this fight?" One of the younger brothers, probably Jesse, shifted nervously. "Maybe we should listen to him, Colt. Shut up. He's got us dead to rights, And if his men are coming, I said, shut up. In that moment of distraction, Hannah moved. She threw herself backward, chair and all, creating chaos. Lucas used it. His first shot took the gun out of Colt's hand before the man could fully draw. His second caught one of the unknown men in the shoulder, spinning him around. Then hell broke loose. Lucas dove behind cover as return fire filled the room. He heard Hannah hit the floor hard, heard her gasp of pain, but he couldn't reach her yet. He had to deal with the immediate threat. 2 more shots carefully placed, and another man went down screaming. The Harlows were scrambling for better positions, but the old ranch house didn't offer much in the way of protection. Lucas had the advantage of knowing the layout from his reconnaissance. "Stop shooting." Hannah's voice cut through the chaos. "Stop, or I swear I'll—" Lucas risked a glance and saw she'd somehow gotten free of the ropes. She held a broken chair leg like a weapon, standing over a semi-conscious Colt Harlow. She must have fallen close enough to him during the chaos to grab something and hit him. The remaining men froze, guns still drawn but their leader at the mercy of the woman they'd kidnapped. "Put them down," Lucas ordered. "Now." One by one they complied. Lucas moved quickly, kicking the weapons away, checking each man for additional guns. Jesse Harlow and the one unknown man who wasn't wounded stared at him with a mixture of fear and hate. "Hannah, are you hurt?" "I'm fine. Bruised but fine." She wasn't fine. He could see that in the way she held herself, the tremor in her hands, but she was alive and standing. That was what mattered. The sound of approaching horses filtered through the night. Pete and the ranch hands appeared moments later, taking in the scene with grim satisfaction. "Sorry it took us so long," Pete said. "The fire was worse than we thought, but nobody got hurt." Lucas kept his rifle trained on the Harlows while his men tied them up properly. "These men are going to Silver City to stand trial for murder, robbery, and kidnapping. Pete, can you and the boys handle the escort?" "With pleasure." As his men secured the prisoners, Lucas finally lowered his gun and went to Hannah. She met him halfway, and then she was in his arms, shaking, her face pressed against his chest. He held her tight, one hand in her hair, the other around her waist. "I've got you. You're safe now. You came." Her voice was muffled against his shirt. "I knew you would, but I was still so scared." "I'll always come for you, Hannah. Always." She pulled back to look at him, her eyes bright with tears in the firelight. "I meant what I said about loving you. It wasn't just for show." Lucas felt his heart expand in his chest. "When did you know?" "I don't know exactly. Somewhere between you offering me your name and teaching me to ride. Somewhere between breakfast conversations and evening walks. You became important, essential." She laughed shakily. "I didn't mean to fall in love with you. I thought I was too broken, too full of grief for Thomas. But you gave me space to heal, and somewhere in that space you became home." Lucas cupped her face gently, mindful of the bruise forming on her cheek. "I love you too. I think I have since that first day when you looked at me with those fierce green eyes and asked why I'd help you. I didn't know it then, but I do now. We got married to save my life. We're married because of a lot of reasons now." He smiled. "Good ones. Are we really going to do this? Make this real?" "It's already real, Hannah. Has been for a while. We've just been too cautious to admit it." She stretched up and kissed him, soft and tentative at first, then deeper as he responded. It felt like coming home, like finding something he hadn't known he was missing. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Hannah was smiling despite the tears on her cheeks. "Take me home, Lucas Denver." "With pleasure, Mrs. Denver." The ride back to the ranch felt different from every other ride they'd taken together. Hannah sat in front of him this time, settled in the circle of his arms, her head resting against his shoulder. They didn't talk much, both exhausted from the evening's events, but the silence was comfortable, full of promise. When they reached the ranch house, the fire damage to the bunkhouse was already being repaired by some of the men who'd stayed behind. Everyone stopped working to watch as Lucas helped Hannah down from copper, his hands lingering on her waist. "Everything all right, boss?" called one of the younger ranch hands. "Everything's perfect," Lucas replied, not taking his eyes off Hannah. Inside the house, they stood in the main room with the lamps casting warm light around them. Hannah looked around as if seeing it with new eyes. "This really is home now," she said softly. "Not just a place I'm staying. Home. Our home. I like the sound of that." She turned to him. "I should probably move my things from the spare room, probably. Unless you think it's too soon. We've only been married a month, and most of that we were still figuring out what this was." Lucas stepped closer, pulling her gently into his arms. "Hannah, we've done everything backward. We got married before we fell in love. We learned each other's daily habits before we had our first real kiss. I don't think there's a too soon or too late for us. There's just us, figuring it out as we go." She smiled up at him. "You're wise for a cowboy. I have my moments." This time when they kissed, it was without the audience of his ranch hands or the adrenaline of near death. It was just them, two people who'd found each other in the strangest of circumstances and somehow made it work. When Hannah took his hand and led him toward his bedroom, their bedroom now, Lucas followed without hesitation. The next morning, Lucas woke with Hannah curled against his side, her dark hair spread across his chest, and felt a contentment he'd never experienced before. She stirred as the dawn light crept through the window, blinking up at him sleepily. "Morning," she murmured. "Morning yourself." He kissed her forehead. "How do you feel? Sore, happy, strange, all of the above?" She traced patterns on his bare chest. "Last night was life-changing." I was going to say perfect, but life-changing works too. They lay there in comfortable silence, watching the light strengthen, until practical concerns intruded. "I should check on the men, make sure the bunkhouse repairs are going well," Lucas said reluctantly. "And I should start breakfast. They'll be hungry." Hannah propped herself up on one elbow. "Is this what it's like? Being married for real, I mean? I don't know. I've never done this before." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "But if it is, I'm glad I'm doing it with you." The next few weeks passed in a blur of happiness. With the Harlows in custody awaiting trial in Silver City, the threat that had hung over Hannah was finally gone. She bloomed without that fear, her laughter coming more easily, her movements less guarded. The grief for Thomas was still there, Lucas knew, but it had softened from an open wound to a tender memory. She spoke of him sometimes, sharing stories, and Lucas was glad she felt comfortable doing so. Thomas had been part of her life, had shaped who she was. Pretending otherwise would have been dishonest. Hannah threw herself into ranch life with enthusiasm, learning everything she could. She had a natural gift with horses, and Lucas found himself teaching her more advanced riding techniques. She could rope a calf now, help with branding, handle a team of horses pulling a wagon. The men respected her, not just as Lucas's wife but as a capable ranch hand in her own right. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch and watch the sun set over the mountains, talking about everything and nothing. Hannah told him about her childhood in Texas, about her parents who'd been shopkeepers, about the loneliness after they died. Lucas shared memories of his father, of learning to run a ranch, of the responsibility and pride that came with this life. "You ever think about having children?" Hannah asked one evening as they watched stars appear in the darkening sky. Lucas felt his heart skip. "Yes, do you?" "I do. I always imagined having a family." She glanced at him. "Thomas and I talked about it. We wanted children. And now, with me," she took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "Now I want it even more. I love you, Lucas. I want to build a life with you, a real life. Children, grandchildren, growing old together. Then that's what we'll do, she laughed. You make it sound so simple, isn't it? We love each other, we're married. We want the same things. The rest is just details. I love how you see the world, it's so straightforward. Is that a bad thing? No. She leaned over and kissed him. It's one of the many things I love about you. 3 months after their wedding, Hannah discovered she was pregnant. She told him over breakfast, her face glowing with nervous excitement. Are you sure? Lucas asked, though he could barely contain his own joy. As sure as I can be without seeing a doctor. But yes, I'm sure. He stood and pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. A baby. We're going to have a baby. You're happy. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. He pulled back to look at her. How do you feel? Are you sick? Do you need to rest? Should you be doing all the work you've been doing? Hannah laughed. I'm fine. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time while doing far more than I do. I'm not made of glass. But Lucas couldn't help being protective, which both amused and touched her. He insisted she take it easier, that she not lift anything too heavy, that she rest more. Hannah tolerated his hovering with good humor, knowing it came from love. As her belly grew, so did Lucas's amazement at the life they were creating. He would lie awake at night with his hand on her stomach, feeling the baby move and marvel at the journey that had brought them here. From strangers to spouses to lovers to parents. You think it's a boy or a girl? Hannah asked one night as they lay in bed. I don't care as long as it's healthy and as long as you're safe. I'll be fine, I'm strong. I know you are, doesn't stop me from worrying. She turned in his arms to face him. Lucas Denver, you gave me everything. Your name, your home, your protection, your heart. You gave me a reason to live when I wanted to give up. Whatever happens, know that you've made me happier than I ever thought I could be again. Nothing's going to happen. You're both going to be fine, and we're going to have a long, happy life together. Promise, promise. The baby came in early spring, a boy with dark hair and Lucas's gray eyes. The birth was long and difficult, and Lucas paced the main room while the doctor and a midwife from town attended to Hannah. Every cry of pain from the bedroom made him want to break down the door, but Pete kept him firmly in place. Women have been doing this forever, Pete reminded him. She's strong. She'll be fine. When the baby's cry finally filled the house, Lucas nearly collapsed with relief. The doctor emerged minutes later, smiling. You have a son and your wife is doing well. She wants to see you. Lucas barely remembered crossing the room. Hannah lay propped up in bed, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. She looked up as he entered, tears streaming down her face. Come meet your son. Lucas sat carefully on the edge of the bed and looked down at the small, red face of his child. Love hit him like a physical force, so strong it nearly took his breath away. He's perfect, Lucas whispered. He is. Hannah placed the baby in his arms, and Lucas held his son for the first time, marveling at how small and fragile and precious he was. I was thinking we could name him Thomas Lucas, if that's all right with you. Lucas looked up, surprised. After your first husband, he should have had children. He should have had the life that was stolen from him. I can't give him that, but I can honor his memory this way. If you're comfortable with it. Lucas felt his throat tighten with emotion. It's a good name, an honorable name, you're sure. It won't bother you. Hannah, Thomas was a good man who loved you. I can honor that. Our son can carry his name with pride. She reached up and cupped his face. Have I told you lately that I love you? Not in the last hour. I was starting to worry. Hannah laughed, then winced. Don't make me laugh. Everything hurts. Sorry. He kissed her gently. Thank you for this, for everything. You've made my life richer than I ever imagined it could be. We made each other's lives richer. That's what love does. They sat together as a family, their son sleeping peacefully in Lucas's arms, and everything felt right with the world. The years that followed were good ones. Thomas grew into a bright, energetic boy who loved the ranch and everything about it. When he was 3, Hannah gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah Grace, who had her mother's green eyes and stubborn streak. 2 years later came another son, Matthew Paul, who was quiet and thoughtful from the beginning. The ranch prospered under Lucas's careful management. They expanded their holdings, built a proper schoolhouse for the growing community, and became pillars of Pinos Altos society. Hannah used her education and intelligence to help establish a library in town, collecting books from across the territory to share with anyone who wanted to read. The Harlow brothers were tried and hanged for their crimes, finally receiving justice for all the lives they'd destroyed. Hannah attended the trial but not the execution. She said she'd seen enough death and preferred to focus on life. As their children grew, Lucas and Hannah told them the story of how they'd met, how a stranger had stumbled into town and changed everything. The children loved the tale, especially the dramatic parts about the rescue and the confrontation at the old ranch house. "So you married Mama to save her life?" Thomas asked when he was 8. "I did." "That's the most romantic thing ever," Sarah declared at age 5. Lucas exchanged a smile with Hannah over their children's heads. "It worked out pretty well." "More than pretty well," Hannah corrected. "It gave us everything." On their 10th anniversary, they returned to the small church where Father Miguel had married them. The old priest was still there, older now but still sharp as ever. "I remember the day you two came to me," he said with a smile. "Two scared strangers asking me to marry them because it was the right thing to do. I wondered if it would last." "We wondered too," Hannah admitted. "But love finds a way, doesn't it? Even in the strangest circumstances, even when it seems impossible, love finds a way." Lucas pulled Hannah close, his arm around her waist. "It does." They renewed their vows that day, this time with full ceremony, with their children present, with the whole community there to witness. The words meant even more now than they had 10 years ago because they understood the weight of them, the depth of commitment they represented. When Lucas slipped a new ring onto Hannah's finger, properly sized this time, an expensive gold band he'd ordered from Santa Fe, she cried happy tears. "I still have the silver one," she told him. "The one you gave me that first day. I keep it in a box with all my treasures." "Why?" "It was just something I grabbed in the moment. Because it represents everything. You gave me the most valuable thing you had without hesitation to save my life. That ring is a reminder of the man I married, the man I love." Years continued to pass, bringing the usual mixture of joys and sorrows. They buried Pete when he died peacefully in his sleep at age 70. They celebrated when Thomas fell in love with the schoolteacher's daughter and brought her home as his bride. They doted on their grandchildren, eventually 5 of them, who brought new life and laughter to the ranch. Lucas's hair turned silver, and Hannah's face gained laugh lines around her eyes. They moved a little slower, but their love never diminished. If anything, it grew stronger with each passing year, deepened by shared experiences and weathered storms. On the evening of their 30th anniversary, they sat on the porch as they'd done thousands of times before, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Their oldest grandchild, Thomas's son Daniel, was attempting to rope a fence post under his father's patient instruction. "You ever regret it?" Lucas asked. "Taking a chance on me that day?" Hannah turned to look at him, her green eyes still bright despite the years. "Not for a single moment. You gave me a reason to live when I wanted to die. You gave me a family, a home, a purpose. You gave me love when I thought I'd never feel it again. You gave me all those things too. Then we're even. Lucas laughed. I don't think marriage is about keeping score. No, it's about showing up every day and choosing each other. That's what we've done, isn't it? For 30 years, through everything, we've chosen each other. And I'd choose you again in a heartbeat, every single time. She leaned her head on his shoulder and they sat in companionable silence, watching their family, their legacy, play out before them in the golden evening light. Lucas. Yes. Thank you for offering me your name all those years ago. Thank you for accepting it. Why wouldn't I? She smiled. You were offering me everything. I was offering you survival. No, she squeezed his hand. You were offering me love, I just didn't know it yet. As the sun dipped below the mountains and stars began to appear in the vast New Mexico sky, Lucas Denver held his wife close and reflected on the strange twist of fate that had brought them together. A desperate woman, a dangerous gang, a split-second decision to offer protection in the form of marriage. It shouldn't have worked. By all logic, a marriage born of necessity and fear should have crumbled. But they'd built something real from that shaky foundation, something strong and true and lasting. Their story had started with a question. Why would you do this for me? The answer had seemed simple then, because it was right, because she needed help, because he could give it. But the real answer, Lucas understood now, was far more complex and far more beautiful. He'd done it because somewhere deep in his soul he'd recognized her. Not consciously, not in any way he could have articulated, but he'd known. This woman, this stranger covered in dust and fear, was meant to be his. The universe had conspired to bring them together in the most unlikely way, and they'd had the courage to see it through. To trust in the possibility of love, even when logic said it was impossible. To build something real from nothing but good intentions and stubborn hope. Years later, when great-grandchildren asked about how Lucas and Hannah Denver fell in love, the family would tell the tale with relish. The desperate woman, the brave cowboy, the name freely given, the love slowly earned. It became legend in their family, passed down through generations as an example of courage and faith, and the unexpected ways love can bloom. But for Lucas and Hannah, sitting on their porch in the twilight of their lives, it was simply their story. Imperfect, unexpected, and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. I love you, Hannah murmured as the first stars appeared. I love you too, Lucas replied. Today, tomorrow, and always. And in that moment, with their family around them and their future secured in the children and grandchildren who bore their legacy, they were completely, utterly content. The cowboy had offered his name to a stranger, and she had given him everything in return. Love, family, purpose, joy. A life well lived, full of meaning and connection. It was more than either of them had dared hope for on that hot August day in 1878 when their paths first crossed. But it was exactly what they both needed, what they both deserved. Their story, born from fear and desperation, had transformed into something beautiful. A testament to the power of compassion, the strength of commitment, and the enduring nature of true love. As darkness fell and they finally rose to go inside, Lucas took Hannah's hand, just as he'd done countless times over the past 3 decades. She smiled up at him, and in her eyes he saw everything, their past, their present, their future. Ready? He asked. Always, she replied. And together, hand in hand, they walked into their home, their haven, built from nothing but a name freely given and love freely returned. The end of their story was really just another beginning, as all good love stories are. Their children would carry on, and their children's children, each generation building on the foundation Lucas and Hannah had created. A legacy of love that started with a simple act of kindness and grew into something magnificent. In Pinos Altos, New Mexico territory, people would talk about the Denvers for generations. About the cowboy who married a stranger to save her life, and how that one act of courage and compassion created a dynasty. About the woman who arrived running from death and stayed to build a life. About how love, real love, can spring from the most unlikely circumstances. But perhaps most importantly, people would remember that sometimes the greatest adventures, the deepest loves, the most meaningful lives begin with a simple choice. To help someone in need, to offer what you have, to be brave enough to take a chance. Lucas Denver had offered his name to a stranger named Hannah Freeman on a hot summer day in 1878. She had asked why he would do such a thing, and though he'd given her an answer then, the full truth had taken years to unfold. He'd done it because their souls recognized each other, because love sometimes arrives in strange packages, because the universe occasionally conspires to bring two people together in the most unlikely ways. He'd done it because she needed him, yes. But also because, though he didn't know it yet, he needed her just as much. And in the end, that simple act of offering his name had given them both everything they'd ever wanted and more than they'd ever dreamed possible. That was the real answer to her question, the one that had taken a lifetime to fully understand. He'd done it for love, even before he knew that's what it was. He'd done it because sometimes when you meet the right person, you just know. Even if it takes time for your conscious mind to catch up with your heart. Lucas and Hannah Denver lived long, full lives, surrounded by family and love. And when they finally passed, years apart because neither could bear to leave while the other still lived, they left behind not just property or wealth, but something far more valuable. A story of love conquering fear, of compassion transforming lives, of two strangers who became soulmates. Their graves sat side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, with a simple inscription that captured everything. Lucas Denver, 1851–1931, and Hannah Denver, 1854–1932. Two strangers who became one, a love that changed everything. And for all the generations that followed, the story of how a cowboy offered his name to a stranger, and she asked why he would do such a thing, remained a touchstone. A reminder that love often comes when we least expect it, in forms we don't anticipate, and that the greatest rewards in life often come from the simplest acts of kindness. Their love story, born in fear and desperation, matured into something beautiful and lasting. A testament to human goodness, to the power of choice, to the transformative nature of love. And though Lucas and Hannah had long since passed from this world, their love remained, echoing through the generations, a beacon of hope and proof that sometimes, against all odds, strangers can become family, convenience can become devotion, and a name freely given can be the beginning of everything.